Now I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to smooth all my values over. So I start with the lightest area right here. Because if I start with the core shadow and I start to blend there and then I go into the lighter areas, I'm just going to make them too dark because the graphite on my, dirty paper towel will just transfer over to those areas and then just everything will be too dark and everything will be the same value. So I don't want to leave like these stripes. I want one value to slowly transition smoothly into the other. So I'm going to do the best I can with this. Maybe even put my thumb up like on top of the paper towel wedge and really press down kind of hard. Then to turn to a clean spot here. And with the shading, you may have to go back and forth. You might have to add a little bit more pencil to make some parts darker. You might have to take away with the kneaded eraser to make other parts lighter. But it's not going to happen right away. You kind of have to go back and forth a little bit, make adjustments. So we're losing our highlight. So I'm going to go in and press really hard with this little squishy kneadable eraser, and then press less hard. And when I press less hard, look at that. It just removes just like the first layer of pencil. And it may leave like little lines of white. If you don't like that, then just go back in and soften up those lines by rubbing with the kitchen paper towel. I'm going to go back in now with the 6B pencil and make that core shadow a little bit darker. Just contrast. The more contrast you have in your sphere drawing, the shinier your sphere or ball will look. The less contrast and the less, contrast is when you have a really dark area of shading right next to a light area of shading. The more gradual it is and the softer the transition is between different value areas, the less shiny the sphere is going to look. And even though this edge is close to the light source, I do put some shading right there just so that the ball is visible on that side, and it just doesn't depend on the pencil line to be visible, because you don't, like I said, you don't want the pencil line to be the only thing that's making this form visible. It should all be about the shading at this point in my curriculum. And these videos are really, they were originally produced and are originally produced for my students in my class, in my high school level class. So okay, so that's that. Take your time. Okay. Don't worry about the smudges in the background, because at this point, I'm just going to go in there with a, let's see here, 2B pencil. And this line here also makes this look like just a line drawing. So if you want to kind of complete the illusion that this is some sort of a landscape with a form sitting there, or it could be like, a tabletop with a ball sitting on top, get rid of this line. This line, this bare naked line, just reinforces the fact that this is just a drawing. If you want it to look more realistic, also put some consideration into the background, and even if it's just a simple background, provide some sort of a background, because the shadow is being cast on something. If it was just floating in space, there would be no shadow. So do put a little bit of shading from this line, fade it down. Fade it down on down as you go down toward about halfway down the paper. The little bit of darker value back here also creates a sense of depth, like this is a flat table surface, but as you go toward the horizon line, it's getting further and further and further away. So there's this implying of space and distance just with value alone. So if you ever shade something sitting on a table, let there be some sort of value change, whether it's in black and white or whether it's in color, because the darker areas will look like they're further away. And I'm just using the same pencil and just laying more pencil marks on top of one another, because the ways that we discussed in class about creating darker or lighter value is, one, simply add more pencil layers one on top of the other. Two, press with less pressure. So press less hard on your pencil. And three, of course, if you have a pencil drawing set, or you could go out and, buy at least a few, 4 or 5 different pencil grades, you could switch up pencils. You could go from harder to softer lead to create lighter to darker values. So you can switch up pressure, you could use different hardnesses of lead, and you could simply put down the pencil with less pressure. And also you could also leave some more space between your lines when you shade, so that there's more of the paper showing through. So just kind of in the way that you space out your marks can make your values lighter or darker if you make your pencil marks closer together. So this exercise should not take too much time at all. I should say it should take maximum 30 minutes. One little thing that I might do, and you already have kind of this lighter area, but I like to put, with my kneaded eraser, a little white crescent right here near the shadow. What that creates is contrast once again. You can kind of go back in with a paper towel and dirty it up a little bit so that it's a little less bright, because you don't want it to compete with your highlight. The highlight you want to keep nice and bright. But like I said, contrast, contrast, and contrast. It's very important to make this ball look three-dimensional. Contrast is important to express the kind of surface it has, whether it has a really shiny glossy surface or has a very soft matte finish to the surface. You can smooth things with the paper towel, but you can also smooth things by making your lines neater and laying down more or less shading very, very carefully, kind of using that light pressure, and just using neater and smoother shading, more gradual shading with the pencil. I'm just getting rid of my little feathery edge here. Okay, you don't want to leave a white highlight or a halo around your object. So I'm going to go back in with this dirty paper towel, which already has some pencil lead on it, and just move some of that pencil right back in there to get rid of that halo effect. So you want to rub from light value area to dark value area, just so that you don't move too much of this dark value down. Light value area to dark value area. I'm not outlining here. I'm actually just creating a little thin, skinny area of value. I'm not drawing a line, and if I did, I would just kind of put some shading from that line on over so that my little sphere here does not blend into my background. I'm just going to put a little bit of a darker value right back in here. And even with my ant umbra, I might want to pick up a little bit, make it a little bit lighter, just a little bit. Okay, and then with that 6B pencil, just go back in and really make that pop. Make that ball separate from your shadow by really putting a very, very dark umbra area right underneath the ball. Okay, and so that about concludes this video on how to shade a sphere.
Feeling free? Okay, follow me.